Hello, everyone, and welcome to Boston University's Professional Fundraising webinar, Mentorship, Building a Rewarding Two-Way Network. My name is Sarah, and I will be moderating today's session alongside our presenters. We certainly appreciate you all tuning in live this afternoon to learn more about the fundraising program offered at BU and to hear from our panel of BU mentors about the value of a mentor-mentee relationship and how these experienced professionals can help you kickstart your career path. We have an engaging session planned for you today, and we welcome our audience to ask questions after our mentor panel discussion and at the end of the presentation during a brief questions and answer session. And today's webinar is being recorded, and a link will be sent to your email tomorrow for your reference or to share with your colleagues. All right, here's our agenda for today. So during today's presentation, we'll provide an overview of the Professional Fundraising Program, then move into our panel discussion with our program mentors, and then we'll review some course logistics and the registration process, and then finally wrapping up with our Q&A session. All right, I would now like to introduce the Professional Fundraising Program Director and today's host, John Shafra. As the Interim Senior Director of Major Gifts at the Harvard Business School, John has spent many years in alumni engagement, annual funds, volunteer management, and major gifts, just to name a few key areas. John completed the BU fundraising program in 2007 and has been instructing for the past 12 or so years. All right, John, I'll have you take it away from here.
Thank you so much for the introduction, and thank you to everyone who's here live and to those who are listening to this recording later. I start these sessions, and I've been doing this for some time, always sharing how inspired I am that there's interest in a program like this. And I would say in the current situation, as the world deals with public health crisis, social unrest, economic uncertainty, it's even more inspiring to me that there's people out there who want to be doing the best work that they can be in bringing resources into important nonprofits and charities. And it is just so wonderful to see that. And I hope that in some small way, this course helps prepare people to do the best work that they can for very important organizations. I'm looking forward to talking today. I will, as Sarah mentioned, go through a little bit about the course, and then we're gonna spend some time talking about mentoring with three accomplished fundraising professionals and folks who have been part of our inaugural mentoring program, mentoring part of this certificate in professional fundraising program. You want to go to the next slide, Sarah? So just in terms of what this program is, it's a 12-week asynchronous learning experience. Each week is a different topic and has the same cadence. So you have a different instructor. They're all professionals in the fundraising field. It's very close to practice, so the content and the assignments are all very practical. Each week we talk through challenges, sort of best practice, and then how you apply it to real world scenarios. We have an international bent to the course, domestic here in the US, higher ed, healthcare. We cover a whole bunch of different industries, organizations, both large and small. And it does cover CFRE credits for education hours. So many people will use this in combination with their professional work to eventually sit for the CFRE. And for this course, it is a certificate course, so you can you do receive a certificate at the end if you've completed all the work. And that certificate then has helped many to move forward in current jobs or look for future jobs, which is a great asset to have. And then, one of the things that is nice as we sort of keep the content sort of regularly updated is that within each week, you also have a live session, which similar to this, there will be people who will come live and people who will listen to the recording. This is not new for those now in this virtual world we live in, but it really enables the instructors to take the content from the week, go in a direction that is really relevant to what's going on out there in the world today. For example, we've spent plenty of time over the last program, which we're in right now, talking about how to do many of the best practices in fundraising in a virtual world or in this sort of world of public health and economic uncertainty. So that's been very rewarding. Go to the next slide. So as I mentioned, it's 12 weeks, and just wanted to give you a little bit of a flavor of what you'll cover. This truly is a foundational program and covers everything from the annual fund to events and volunteer management, major gifts, managing of fundraising or development shop, and really everything in between. We cover foundations and corporations, prospect research, and for many who take this, they are coming in with limited knowledge, so this broadens the scope of what someone's trying to learn outside of their specific function in fundraising. We have many who take the course where this is an overview because they're looking to get into the fundraising field. I'm always heartened to see we have volunteers who often take the course, board members for small nonprofits who are looking to expand their knowledge to help a small staff at an organization they care about move that organization forward. And it really is quite sort of comprehensive in nature. So there's something for everyone, and you leave with a true understanding of the language of fundraising and how to apply that to different circumstances. Next slide, please. So as I talked about, an aspect outside of the sort of day-to-day coursework is this mentoring program. So we've started offering a one-to-one mentoring resource through the program. So about a couple weeks into the course, we'll connect you with a mentor. We'll make the introduction for you to then find time to spend some initial time getting to know each other, and then some follow-up time by email and continued connection, depending on how those conversations go. The pool of mentors is pretty broad in the field. Many folks have taken this course before, and so that's a nice asset, but it covers folks who are in higher ed and healthcare and social service, people who've been in the field for a long time, people who've been in the field for a shorter amount of time. And what's nice is we sort of set up the mentors so you're probably matched with someone who is not in your day-to-day field or in your type of organization. And so it can be a broadening of your network and understanding of the professional fundraising field. Next slide.
All right, thank you, John. That now brings us to our panel discussion with our program mentors. I'll take a moment just to introduce each of our panelists, and then John will kick off the conversation asking questions pertaining to mentorship or networking. Just as a reminder, we do encourage our audience to ask questions to our mentor panel following the discussion, whether be related to careers or simply advice on how to form a valuable professional network. All right, so our first panelist today is Reginald Stewart, PhD. Reginald is the Vice President for Diversity and Inclusion at Iowa State University and holds an adjunct appointment in the School of Education. Dr. Stewart has received recognition from the U.S. Department of Education, the College Board, the NAACP, and the Ames Chamber of Commerce, just to name a few. In 2019, Dr. Stewart was recognized with the Ames Humanitarian Award. And Mary Beth Canning is the founder of Mary Beth Canning Consulting and an accomplished nonprofit executive and chief development officer with 20+ years of leadership experience. Mary Beth has built top performing philanthropy programs and teams and launched 3 major capital campaigns. Mary Beth's engagements challenge leaders, create paradigm shifts, and reshape culture to produce high-performing, world-class fundraising results. And Vassar Pierce is the interim director of advancement at Pomfret School, where he has worked since 2014. Vassar came to Pomfret from Suffolk University Law School and worked at Boston University and the trustees of reservations prior to that. He has experience working across advancement, including major gifts, annual giving, and development operations. All right, and John, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you so much, and thank you Reg, Mary Beth, and Vassar for being here this afternoon. So I thought I'd start in a way to sort of personalize this, because I do believe mentorship can be a very personal experience. And by asking sort of who, if you could recollect a first or early mentor that you had, and what the impact they've had on you in either your career or how you've thought about your work and who you are. And maybe if I could ask Reg to start us on that.
Sure, happy to support. Can you all hear me okay?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Excellent, excellent. So I really have two very quick examples of mentors very early in my life that I think are valuable for this conversation. The first is my first saxophone instructor. His name is Ben Meltzer. And if you can imagine Yoda with a saxophone, you have a pretty good idea of what Ben looked like in his mannerisms. And Ben was incredibly hard on me, even from a very early age, learning how to play the saxophone. And his whole rationale behind that was, your mentor, or the person that helps lead you towards some opportunity, is always going to be the person that pushes you to your limit, but does it in a way that lets you know that if you falter, they're still going to be there to support you. And many years later, I'm still playing saxophone, and Ben influenced me to never put the horn in the case. He says always leave it out so that it always calls you to play. So Ben as a youth, I think was really influential. But as I got into my profession, my career, I was getting frustrated and a little burnt out with the fact that I didn't feel like I was moving or progressing as fast as I could. And I had said to a colleague, a mentor on campus, now that I was stayed at a previous institution, and I said, it's just frustrating because we all know to be successful, it's not what you know, but who you know. And he had corrected me, and he said, that's actually not correct. He said, it's not what you know, but who knows you. And so he said, the goal is to make sure that your reputation precedes you, that you are well-versed, well-spoken, well-communicated, and people will find you. And that has stuck with me forever. So I was literally having a mentor conversation with a 20-something individual yesterday, and I gave that exact piece of advice. So I think the last part I'll add is that I think a valuable mentoring relationship is one in which anything that you get, you are willing to give and pay it forward. And I'll stop there and let my colleagues weigh in.
Thank you, Reg. I love that that phrase of who knows you. Mary Beth, could you go next?
Of course. That was very thoughtful, Reginald. Thank you. I guess the first person was someone I just admired. She was really the smartest person in the room, always. And we worked together. So she was an internal sponsor in one of my first organizations whose work I just really, really admired. And she kind of took me under her wing, and I became a very, very good student. And, there are things that I learned from her that I, still carry with me today. Another sponsor who I really have a lot of gratitude to and have worked with in a professional capacity, and he continues to be a mentor to me, was an individual, it was a donor in the community that was pointed out to me as someone very important to impress. And so I made an appointment to meet with him, and he told me exactly what had been going on in this particular foundation, and actually how we had done a terrible job cultivating his interest. And so he then was really apologetic about how hard he was on me. And from that point on, he became one of my best advocates and was an unbelievable person to open doors. And so he really enjoyed mentoring. And most of our, it might have seemed like it was more of an exchange, but I really felt like he was a mentor to me and taught me the importance of any any success that you have, sharing that with others. So those were two, I don't know, he was just a fabulous, in fact, so many people, he mentored so many people that he had people, he lived in Winchester, and people who wanted to have a conversation with him used to drive him in and out of Winchester. Isn't that amazing?
That is amazing. I have to say, there is a group of people out there in the world that I think are really special, and it sounds like he falls in that category, who just love to mentor people in all different ways. And I think that is really, really quite amazing.
One thing he did, John, that was the best, and if you can find a mentor like this, he would meet with me in Starbucks, and every single person who walked in the door wanted to talk to him. So I met them all, and he would say, "You should take a call from her." It's great.
That is the best, what is it, third party recommendation to get.
Yeah, it was awesome.
Vassar, is there a mentor that you would point out as someone who's been in?
Yeah, like Reg and Mary Beth, I've had many mentors, but the first and most prominent is a gentleman named Bill Bagley, and he was a colleague, like Reg and Mary Beth. He was a colleague of mine in my first development position, and I identified him as someone that I wanted to learn from pretty early on, because he clearly was effective at what he did. He had these amazing donor relationships. And so I just started, staying late at work and finding reasons to talk to him. And so I would, go to his office and ask him a question, and then half an hour later, I'd have 3 pieces of life advice. And, we worked together for 3 years, but he remains someone that I call whenever I have a question, whether it's a practical question about an aspect of, fundraising that I have maybe less experience with, or I'm struggling with a donor and I, want someone's advice on what to do. Or, if I'm looking towards the next stage of my career, he's someone that I would call and seek the counsel of. So, definitely someone that I admire, and he taught me, one of the most important lessons that I've ever learned when it comes to networking in particular. But, for me, having a wide network allows for me to have a number of mentors. Was, if you're ever meeting someone, you should ask for 2 names at that end of the meeting of people that you should also meet. And if it's someone who's thoughtful and, like Maribeth's mentor, knows a lot of people, then you're just going to continue to expand your network, over and over and over again, and you're going to find really important and impressive people who will be able to help you.
That's great. I love that. This is one of the hallmarks of the course, not to shill for the course too much, but that practical, these nuggets to take away. Asking for 2 names, that's a great piece of advice. Vassar, can I dig in a little bit more with you? So in those early days when you were sort of finding reasons to stay, sort of 2 questions I had on that. One is, what would be a question that you would come up with to try to engage Bill in conversation? And then the other is, when did you sort of realize that Bill was your mentor? I think there's this formality of, oh, so-and-so is my mentor, but it tends to come sort of later, maybe after you've had a number of interactions or connections, that you actually look at it and say, oh yeah, they were my mentor. Any thoughts on either of those?
Yeah, absolutely. So the first question, I would say, the question that I would ask Bill, and I'd ask him it over and over again, and I'll ask other mentors or mentees, which I think is a really important question is, what is the thing that you are getting hung up on at work right now? What is that one thing that you are finding most challenging? And, what's your process to deal with that, and why? And the reason I loved asking that to Bill was because he would talk about, this challenging donor or this project that he was trying to get funded, and all of the different people who were involved in it, and why we wanted to get engaged with this project. And he would say, I'm struggling with this. And then he would tell me, these are the steps I'm taking to deal with that struggle. And so I would just sit there and I would just absorb what he was saying. I never took a notebook or anything in. I would just listen. And he knew that by telling me the steps he was taking to problem solve, that he was giving me, life and professional guidance without me directly asking for it. And that, something that I really admire in him and try and do when I'm acting as a mentor. And then, I don't think I actually really realized that this was a mentor, that he was my official mentor. I don't know if he realized he was my mentor, or we ever formalized it, until I was looking for another job. And I talked to him about that. And I had, reached the level that I felt like I could reach in my current organization. I'd been there for 3 years, and there was no immediate position, that was above where I was, that I was interested in. And so, I started to think about, what is next? And I broached that with him. And that's when I think it really took a formal, it became a more formal relationship. And then now, I don't think he would call himself a mentor of mine. He'd just call me his friend. And I would say the same, but he is always and will always be a mentor to me.
Yeah, that's great. That evolution is helpful to hear. Reg, you talked a little about paying it forward. So I'd be interested to hear when you felt you could be a mentor to others, and how being a mentor, how you sort of approach being a mentor today, but also really sort of how you got a sense that there was something you could do to be helpful to others.
Yeah, thank you. I'll build on a little bit what Vassar touched on, and offer up a little bit more Jedi wisdom here. I don't think that you're called upon to be a mentor, no more so than I think you're called upon to be a parent or a guardian. I think it's when someone comes to you and there's some element of need, whether that's professional need, whether that's personal need, and you know that you have the capacity to answer the call. So there's a tremendous amount of this that's intuition, and that may be built over a career arc. You may be well versed in a discipline or a skill, but the fact is you also somehow are exuding this aura that people will come to you and they feel safe coming to you. So there's some intangibles that exist in the mentoring relationship. I think that it's very unscripted. I think it's very unplugged. I think, just like Vassar was saying, most mentor relationships, I don't have anybody sitting down writing notes, or anything like that. There are these types of conversations, but it's just, if you've been around anything long enough, my undergrad institution, I went to San Francisco State, and the motto at that university is experience teaches. And I've always, I always thought that was a great university motto, because so much of what the mentor relationship is your experience that you're able to share with other people. And really quickly, I'll just add to a recent evolution for me, at least, is I've had people come to me recently and actually ask me, quote unquote, will you mentor me? And to be honest, I don't know how to answer that question. I mean, it's hard for me to say no to folks who are reaching out for help, but it feels much less organic, if that makes sense, right? It doesn't feel like sort of this natural evolution of a relationship. And so the structure of it is different, and so you have to model it differently and things like that. But I would say, maybe the salient takeaway is, John, I don't recommend that you offer a certificate in professional mentoring through BU. I don't think that I don't think you can teach this in 12 weeks. I think this is a lifetime of giving and receiving, and I think that symbiotic relationship is what makes people a mentor.
Yeah, Reg,
I'll stop there.
I think that is so on the money, and I think I would add to that, just sort of from my own personal perspective and why I sort of brought this into this course and it's been important to me, is that I feel like sometimes people think there's a little too much mystery around finding the right mentor, or and the reality is the best ones, as you say, are these organic relationships, and that's what we've heard come out in conversation. But if you don't really know, you should be thinking about starting it. And so maybe you have a couple clumsy conversations where you are asking someone more directly to be a mentor, or you have the opportunity to have sort of more randomized, through a conference or through this course or something of that nature. I think it begins to build an important muscle. And I'm always mindful of the people who just haven't been exposed to seeking out relationships like this. Because sort of as Mary Beth mentioned, and then I'll get back to you, it's these internal, you use the word internal sponsor. I mean, oftentimes this does become a place where, you have a mentor who then knows you in a way they might not know other people, and then they connect you with other people or put in a good word for you. And it's just so important in terms of how you build your own professional career and network.
John, I would add one thing to that.
Yeah,
Thank you. Let me just build on real quick. I think that, it's important as a mentor, though, to also be very mindful that because the relationship is symbiotic, is to just be really careful that you're not entering into some sort of symbiotic thing where you need the person to be the mentee to you. And where I learned this was, I have people who I mentored all the way back in the mid 90s that, in recent years, I've actually had to sort of cut off and distance the mentor relationship, because what I was finding is that, 20 years later, they wouldn't make a decision without consulting me. And, I had to become very mindful that part of the mentor relationship is this evolution and growth to the point in which maybe they don't need you anymore. And if you can get people to that position, then, like Vassar said, you move from being a mentor to really being a friend. And so I think that's also something that we all as mentors have to pay attention to.
Yeah, I think that's a great point as well. Mary Beth, sort of speaking on sort of the mentee side, what do you find has been effective when you've been mentoring someone in how they approach you, the types of questions they might ask you, or what they might be looking to learn from you?
The classic question, tell me how you got where you are, I think is just a natural conversation, and easy to kind of talk about some of the challenges you may have faced during different parts of your career. So I think that's a great question. Another, tell me about a time when, depending on, what it is specifically, like Vassar was saying, if there's a specific, a specific issue that they're struggling right now, or something that's challenging them. I think those are really, helpful questions, and questions about, and then in reverse, when I was approaching mentors or trying to learn from others, the best question is always the one that we all use in fundraising, which is tell me more. Tell me more is just a great opener with donors, and a great opener, tell me more about how you did that. It's just a great conversation starter. And as you get older, you really do enjoy sharing, these things that you may have struggled through, and you can just offer it, part of paying it forward, and kind of gratitude for the field that I work in. and all the people that have inspired me throughout my career.
Yeah, I love to hear that. I do think that it is true. There's a joy that comes from being able to share what you've learned with others, and hopefully help people navigate how they've done that. On a little bit more practical note, Mary Beth, how often are you, someone that you might be mentoring, engaging with them, being in conversation?
I have mentored people who like to check in on a monthly basis, folks who check in every 3 months. And then, of course, when there are people on your team that you're just naturally interacting with or overseeing, you get to have, often there's weekly meetings. So I think that, most of us who have gotten to this point in our careers, it's really just, as you said, it's just such a joy. And I learn as much from, others' perspective and approach and experience. It's a conversation. So I hope always to be helpful, but I just appreciate the conversation and learning others' perspectives as much as, troubleshooting.
Yeah, no, that's great. And thanks for answering that question, because I do think sometimes it feels like a mentor relationship needs to be something that's more constant, but lots of good to having, quarterly check-ins, or, just some pace that's not taxing to either person in this mentorship relationship. And I also would double down on your comments, Mary Beth. If you're someone who, which I think this panel, many in this field, are inquisitive, like to learn, enjoy different perspectives, the best thing you can do is be a mentor to people around you, because you do get all this information and perspective that I think is so valuable and interesting. So why don't we pause there? I'll turn it over to Sarah if there's questions for the panel or for myself. We'll take a few of those.
Great, thank you so much, John, and to our panelists here. Just as a reminder to the audience, if you do have a question, please type in the questions box on your GoToWebinar control panel, and we'll be sure to ask it on the air. We do have a few questions here for the panelists. No particular person has been mentioned, but if someone wants to jump in, or I can direct it to somebody that feels comfortable answering that, we'll go from here. The first question here, if your mentee asks, in what areas can I improve myself professionally, what might you generally say to them? And if anyone wants to take that, feel free to jump in.
Why don't we start that with Vassar? Would you make a comment?
Yes, absolutely. I think the first thing, if a mentee came to me and said, in what ways can I improve myself professionally, the first thing I would do is, like Mary Beth alluded to, with, we love to ask questions as fundraisers. I'd ask, well, I'd ask two things. One, where do you see your career going? What skills do you want to acquire? And then also, what do you think is going really well? And what do you think is going, what do you think you can improve on, and why do you think that? And I would say that so that we could engage in a dialogue about, how your skills that you have right now in your role, and you are using the muscles you're flexing, to use John's language, in your role, are going to help you get to where you ultimately want to get to, or even where you want your next step to be in your professional career. And I think that, if that opens a dialogue about where you're going to go, or where you want to go, then I can give more concrete feedback. But as a mentee, or as a mentor, I would want to know what is going well and what's not going well, and why is it not going well, and then I'd be able to help. If we were colleagues, I'd probably be able to give you more concrete advice. based on observation versus, a conversation.
That's great, Vassar. Thank you so much. The next question actually is for Mary Beth. This person says, what is one piece of advice you would give someone who is also looking to be an independent fundraising consultant?
I'm excited for them. It is a wonderful career and incredibly rewarding. And it's about staying in touch. It is so similar to how we work with donors. It's about cultivating the relationships that you have, and kind of building your network. I think that's the most important thing. That you hopefully you've been doing that throughout your career, and then reaching out to reconnect them and to reconnect with them if it's been a while, and always bringing value. Always bringing value to the conversation, offering them something that you've written, or just saying, I'd love to hear how you're doing and what's going on, and then providing some insight free of charge, just to have that rapport with them, I think is really important. So even if it's been a while, there's so much right now, especially to check in on how are you doing during this period? How has your organization pivoted? What are you seeing in your field? Those kinds of questions are great openers.
That's great. Thank you so much, Mary Beth. And our next question here from the audience, this person asks, how long might a mentoring relationship last? And Reginald, if you want to take that one, that would be great.
Sure, we'll do. I think, and like I said just a little bit ago, I have people that I have been, working in a mentor capacity since the middle 90s. And so a mentoring relationship can last for decades. And again, I think as long as you're mindful not that you haven't built some sort of codependence where you need them to call upon you for your own personal gain. But I think that as careers mature and as our disciplines evolve, so if you think about the fundraising discipline, if you think about higher education in general, the mechanisms and the processes we use evolve. And so the mentoring relationship evolves because you're always trying to keep the people you're supporting contemporary. I would say that, as a mentor, you have to be, I think maybe my most favorite or rewarding experience is to literally watch someone as they solve the problem themselves. And so what you're doing is you open up this channel of dialogue, and you can do a lot of listening and not a lot of talking and still be a mentor, because you'll watch them talk through these different cycles and experiences. And then this light bulb, like literally in the cartoons, you'll see like the light bulb shine right above the top of their head. And they're going to say to you, thank you for helping me. And the whole time you're saying, the answer was in you all along. You really just needed a sounding board. And so I think that sounding board can be in a relation. You can be in a relationship, as a mentoring relationship, for 6 months as a sounding board, for 6 years, or for 16. It really just depends on the level of investment both parties are willing to make in the success of that particular person.
That's an excellent answer. Thank you, Reginald, for that. Our next question here from the audience, David says, I have a strong mentor relationship in my hometown that I've developed over a decade, but I recently moved to an entirely new city and fundraising environment across the country as a first-time ED. What recommendations do you have for how to make these sort of deep connections in a new city, especially during this time? And I don't know if anyone wants to jump in on that one, if anyone has any experience with new connections in a new city.
I'll jump in on that one. This is Reg again. I think that this goes back to, the initial recommendation that I have with it. It's not who knows you, because in I guess in David's situation, he's part of relocating is people don't know him. He doesn't have his network, right? Or he doesn't know people. So the goal is to sort of get his pre-existing relationships and bring his reputation with him, and you use that through artifacts. You make sure that there are a few key people in organizations that can be can be sort of a Sherpa for you. They can speak on your behalf, whether artifacts, I think, are things like if you have video like TED Talks and things like that, if you have some success that you can share with an organization for free, then your reputation will start to precede you. So a lot of it is really developing a ground game so that people will speak on your behalf even when you're not present. And that does take some time. Be okay and be comfortable with saying that you're not going to be in the same place in this new location that you were with the previous location. Give yourself a year to make the necessary relationships to build some capital, some social capital. I'll stop there.
That's wonderful. Thank you, Reg, for that. And the last question I have here today from the audience is, how does a mentor relationship start out in the BU Professional Fundraising Program? And I don't know if maybe Vassar, if you want to take that, or if anyone else feels comfortable answering that one.
Sure. Well, I can speak to my experience. Do you want to jump in and share exactly how it happens, and then I can speak to my own experience?
Yeah, why don't I can
a mentor through the program.
That would be great, Vassar. Why don't I just start? So we do a call for mentors from past participants and from networks of fundraisers. And within the first 2 weeks of the course, you're matched by email to a mentor. And from there, you're working with your mentor to find a time for an initial connection and conversation. And then there's the opportunity to stay in touch through the length of the course, which is 12 weeks and beyond. Again, the organic nature of mentorship, this is really a sparking opportunity for relationship. And for some, these will be relationships that will continue to go beyond this. And for others, they might not. We give you some sample questions and all of that to help ease the conversation as well. Vassar, what was your experience like?
My experience was great. I had 2 mentees, and what was wonderful about it was that they were in completely different phases of their careers. One was relatively new to her career period, and so we had, a lot of tactical conversations about her career and building her experience for her resume so that she could ultimately get to where she aspired to, which was great. And I imagine that we will continue to have those conversations for years to come. And then the second was a gentleman who transitioned into the field from after a 20 or 30 year career outside of advancement. And most of our conversations were, he's a relative. He understood how to be how to build relationships, and was incredible at that, and understood how to run a team. And but really, some of the basic advancement language and strategy was something that eluded him, and he was running the advancement operation for this institution. And so we talked, it was almost all about strategy for how he could both build relationships internally that will help his cause, and then build relationships with donors and who to target and how to prioritize. And so what was so wonderful about it was that it both relationships, I think, will continue to speak to that organic nature of a mentoring relationship, and they were entirely different conversations, and I learned from each of them too. So it's definitely a two-way street. I would probably do this even if I didn't get anything out of it, but I do get something out of it. And so, know that as a mentee, you're giving to your mentor too. You might be giving them something different, but you are giving to them.
That's great. Well, let me take this opportunity, Reg, Mary Beth, Vassar, to thank you so much for participating today, and even Beyond that, thank you for being mentors in this program and being part of my network of people that I can call upon for thoughts, advice, and help. All very much appreciated. And I hope you guys have a great rest of your afternoon. Thanks so much.
Thanks so much.
Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, now at this time, we'll just go into a few course logistics. John, if you could take just the next 2 slides, and then we'll jump over to Amber briefly and wrap up for the day.
I sure will. So in addition to a great network of mentors who engage with the course, which is somewhere in the 40 to 50 people, we have a fantastic core teaching team with experience across higher ed, healthcare systems, small nonprofits like the Animal Rescue League. You can see their impressive bios here, but this is really the team that will bring each topic to life every week. They have experience in the topic and will be both your instructors, but also your resources. So many get to know students and will be part of your network as well if you're a part of the program. Next slide. And then this came up earlier, but just to call out, really a special part of the course is the live sessions, and wanting to just double down now in this virtual Zoom world. These are sessions that are available for live interaction. So for those who that part of the learning experience is important, the rest of the learning is asynchronous. There is the opportunity to engage with your classmates and get to know them and the faculty, but they're also recorded and a great listen and an opportunity to build your knowledge base, apply it to the course, and continue to learn in a different mode.
Great, thank you very much, John. And now I'd like to turn it over to Amber Nolan, which is Boston University's Senior Enrollment Advisor, just to provide a high-level overview of some course logistics and the registration process. Thank you, Amber.
Thank you, Sarah. Yes, so for the professional fundraising course, we do offer that program 3 times a year. January is our spring session, May is our summer session, and September is our fall session. We're enrolling currently for our fall session. It begins on September 8th. Our enrollment deadline is August 14th, and the tuition price is $2,495. The website is there, and yes, so that is the enrollment options. We do offer different payment options for the program. We offer monthly payment plans. What that looks like for the fall session would be a split payment. So it would be half of the tuition cost paid this month upon registration, and then 30 days later, the card is charged again for the second part of the payment. Third-party payments might include your employer. Those could be paid also through credit card, or we could send you check instructions if they'd rather do it that way. The education loans that we accept is the Sallie Mae Smart Option Loan. Detailed instructions on how to apply for that loan can be found on our website, and that is a very quick turnaround loan that is issued through the government, so you pay it back on their schedule with their interest rates. And then we also do accept military benefits, being the VA and then the MyCAA tuition funding. Again, to contact us, speak with myself or any of our other enrollment team. There's our email there if you'd like to just give us an email with questions. Our phone is there as well, 617-502-8822, and then the website to listen to. We do have other webinars there, course information, modules, quite a bit of information on our website.
All right, great. Thank you so much, Amber. All right, that does conclude our session for today. I'd like to thank you all again for tuning in, and we hope that the information presented and the advice from our panelists and from John will help influence your current or future careers in philanthropy. Thank you all again.
Thank you everyone for coming.